Okay, that was interesting. That was a delayed view for me. You guys have been on for 27 seconds, and I've been on for 5. So that is awesome start. Welcome to the Straight Red Card. We have a guest today who's going to go through all your questions and comments and all that jazz with us. And we have some topics to take on. It is the awesome Yank Report creator, the guy who does some amazing interviews. And I actually said the other day, man, Sam Stokes really squeezed a lot out of Jimmy Conrad that we did not squeeze out of Jimmy Conrad. But, you know...
I love Jimmy's comment when he was like, when you had mentioned that he's really straddling the fence there, and he goes, "Yeah, I'm all lubed up for that."
Yeah, that was very early on too. It's like the first thing he said.
Speaking of lubed up, all of us are, I believe, tonight, or we are looping it up. No, okay, that's Scott. That went all wrong. That took a bad turn right away.
Derek and I are in different rooms despite the lighting situation.
Yeah, what is it about me being present on a live stream that makes people talk about lube? I don't understand where that's coming from, but
it's the good looks, Sam.
It's the candles you have lit in the background.
That's what it is. Yeah.
It's all about mood.
The mood maker.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, did anybody catch the U.S. women's game where we won against New Zealand and every single goal was an own goal by New Zealand?
By the same person. It was by the same person. 3 own goals. She had a hat trick.
It's got to be the all-time worst absolute day for a defender I've ever watched.
The worst.
Yeah.
Or the best. I mean, she made history at this point. People who watch the game will always remember it.
Yeah. Also, I guess and we should all comment about this. We found out that Gio's injury is really just sort of a sit him for a couple weeks injury. So it's not as serious as it looked like when he was carried off the field crying. But
so I think what it is they predicted this before he went out and played because they said he was going to be gone for like 2 weeks. He had an illness for 2 weeks.
Yeah. And
now he's really going to be gone for 2 weeks.
I mean, that's if you guess.
If you remember, whenever he initially got that injury, it was not supposed to be very long. It got pushed back and back and back and back and back. So that's kind of my fear is like you never know with these types of injuries how long it's actually going to be. So hopefully it is 2 weeks, and hopefully he's repaired and good to go for the rest of the season. But yeah, that was scary, man. I saw a World Cup qualifying flash before my eyes whenever he was coming off the field.
I don't know if it's a debate for me right now. Do you bring him to the March window at this point?
No.
It makes me nervous.
I guess we have a month until then. So
yeah,
who the fuck knows,
that's the thing.
All right. Well, yeah,
if he's good to go. I mean, he's an impact player. He's a big deal, and he's the type of player that's a big enough deal that even if he's only available for a half hour in that last game against Costa Rica, bring him on for that half hour in that last game against Costa Rica because we might need him to do something special, and he's capable. To your Cajun accent, he's capable of doing something special in that last 30 minutes. So if he's available, if he's healthy, if he can do it, I say bring him.
Yeah, I mean you're right. Even if he's just a super sub for a couple games or something like that, because he's just too damn good.
Yeah. I mean, you saw in that game that where he got injured in. I mean, he had that half volley that was.
He fought for that half volley.
Boy, yeah.
Against his own teammate.
I think it was like Wonder Twin powers activate and form a foot and almost scored. Nice.
Yeah, I actually think Reyna got 90% of that kick. I think the other guy just
I think he kicked Reyna's foot, add a little more power to it.
So if Reyna comes and he makes the team, that's disgusting, Brett. All right.
You said it, not me, okay?
All right. So Reyna makes the next window. Weah's healthy. Pulisic's healthy. Where in the hell are you going to play Reyna? Because I very much doubt Gregg's going to play him in the midfield. What do you think, Sam?
I think you have an opportunity to rotate, man. I think that's the beauty of having such a quality side. I don't know that we have to think in terms of a best 11, especially whenever you consider the next window and like the opposition. going into that first game against Mexico. I mean, if you can steal a point in Azteca, that just makes the rest of the window so much easier. If you can win in Azteca, I mean, that just changes the complexion of everything. And if you consider how the U.S. has played Mexico, especially in that last World Cup qualifier, I think that we match up very well against them. And I think we have every opportunity to go into the Azteca and get 3 points or at least 1 point. So you have a situation where you can play one of Weah, Pulisic, Reyna, and sit one, and then have another 2 come in for that all important Panama game. I think that's the kind of luxury that you have whenever you have quality players like this roster does whenever everyone is healthy and available.
Could you play him as a false 9?
You could. I think Gio Reyna is a good enough player where you can play him as the left wing, the false 9, the right wing, the striker, an 8. I mean, he can play a lot of positions. Where is he most effective? I think is a different conversation. And
yes,
for me,
because
I would say instead of a false 9, let's hope that never comes about. That would be more of a 10. Let's let McKinney and Adams run the midfield.
We don't play a 10, Brett.
I know that, but we're talking about playing him in the midfield. We're talking about playing him as a false 9. Why not play him as a 10?
I think we know Gregg's system is pretty rigid, and I don't think that Gregg is going to change his system much at all between now and the next World Cup qualifiers. And with that in mind, I think the positions on the field where we want Reyna to be in, he's going to find most often as one of those half space winger players, the position that Tim Weah has been playing, the position that that Christian Pulisic's been playing. I think that's where you get him in that space on the field where, in the buildup, he can get the ball and turn and run at the back line. And whenever we're in possession, he can receive the ball with his back to the goal in front of the box and play nice passes and maybe get some shots off, stuff like that. I think that's ultimately the best spot for him. I think if you play him as an 8 in Gregg's system right now, I think he has to do a lot of defensive work.
Right.
I think that takes away,
So I always find within Berhalter's 8s, there's always a more advanced 8. Yeah. There's always a more box-to-box 8. So McKinney generally plays that box-to-box 8, and then Musa plays more of that advanced 8 until recently, of course.
Right.
So why not? You could say if Reyna played in the 8, he could play as the more advanced 8. Because I mean, even in that 30 minutes that he had for Dortmund, I mean, he was back at the 18, pulling some defensive duties. I mean, he was back there. It's just
you're doing 2 things there. First of all, you're asking Weston McKennie to kind of rein himself in, which is not really who Weston McKennie's ever been. He's never been effective at that. He's always been at his best whenever he's free. And the second thing is, I mean, look at what Weston McKennie's doing whenever he's the free runner coming into the box late. I mean, he is so lethal in that position. I don't think that we want him doing what Musa's been doing, which is like covering for fullbacks who are attacking whenever we're in that that final third. I don't think that we want Reyna doing that. I don't think we want Weston doing that. I think we want both of them involved in the attack. And I don't think you can do that if they're both playing 8 the way that we're doing it right now.
Well, I only think Moose has been covering for the fullbacks this last window. Prior to that, he played further ahead.
He did have a little more freedom, but
McKinney had the freedom of playing the box to box, so he came back on the defense when needed. But he played in the attack just as much, and he always played right next to. It was almost like an inverted triangle with just the 6 and the 2 top 8s on top. But then one played more box to box, and one played just more advanced.
I mean, this is getting into the weeds of tactics, right? But Brett is right.
That's what we do.
In the last game, we saw actually McKennie behind the fullback quite a bit, and then on the other side, I mean. In the last game Musa played, we saw him behind the fullback on the left.
They actually switched sides in the which game was it? The Canada game?
El Salvador too.
I think in the last window prior to that, in the window where we played Mexico and where we played Jamaica, I mean specifically on those sequences where even the window before that where we played Costa Rica. Those sequences where Weah and Dest were pushed very high up the field and were in the opposition box. The sequence where Weah actually put in that cross for Pulisic's goal. In both those sequences, Weah and Des were very advanced, and Musa was covering for him. And we saw that in Costa Rica as well, in that goal that that Des scored where he was on the top of the box and he hit that shot in with his left foot. Weah was covering for him there. That's like a pivotal part of the system. If you want Des to get advanced and into the attack, and especially if you want him to come into that channel, which we saw a lot where Des would come into the channel and Weah would push out wider. We saw that happen over and over again. Musa was covering for him. So that's not, I don't want Gio Reyna to remove himself from the attack so that Serginho Dest can get forward. But yeah, you're right. We're getting super into the weeds tactically.
But that's why he's going to end up playing winger. I mean, if he plays for Greg.
I think so right now.
You look at the system Red Bull plays, Salzburg plays with Aronson, and you're like, wow, Aronson can really shine in a 4-3-1-2, all right, where he's behind the two strikers.
Strikers? That's unheard of, Derek. Don't talk about that around here.
Well, and the thing is, those two strikers go wide as well and suck in when appropriate, right? So it's a whole system where, yeah, they're wingers slash tens, dual tens, and we don't do that. That would be, that would be maybe too much for Greg to handle.
Well, and I will say we're gonna branch into this in a little bit, but in the Bobby Warshaw conversation, Greg talked about Ferreira's play as being required to come back into a little further back than the other two in the attacking trio. So I mean, he can play at time to time. He can play that type of a 4-3-1-2, like you said. Where the 9 more or less checks back in.
That's as close as he gets to.
As close as it gets. I agree. 100%.
So, but it would be nice to see something like that. And I know that's an old-fashioned position. Not a lot of teams use anymore. Kind of like a 4-4-2. But Sam, I'm sorry.
It's like fashion. All the formations will come back around. A 4-4-2 will be fashionable 10 years from now.
Maybe.
Calling it.
Well, we still see it as the base defensive formation. It's the one that just about every team in the world uses defensively. It's just as attacking formation, we don't see it as much because you want you don't want that, like, I mean, classically it was the big striker and then your fast striker, right? And now you're supposed to have one striker who can kind of be both, and you have these wingers who are supposed to get in behind. That's sort of how everybody in the world's playing right now. We'll see if soccer changes, but the way that it's looking with guys just being more technical, more athletic, asked to do more things, we're seeing more spread out and guys being asked to cover multiple things as opposed to what the 4-4-2, at least what it used to be, where it was very specialized. You had your guys who did this, you had your guys that did that, and you had your guys that did that. I don't think we're going to go back to that anytime soon.
I thought you were almost going to hit me with the wiffle ball bat on that and do like a Beastie Boys rhyme there. We did it like this. We did it like that. We did it with a wiffle ball bat. All right. That's an old song, folks.
I will say, David, I don't necessarily know if Ferreira's getting shat upon. I mean, in that same game that he missed those easy opportunities, he did assist in the goal. So
yeah, I've been high on Ferreira, man. I really like Ferreira.
I dig him.
He doesn't need to be shit on. I mean, he missed it. So what? I mean, a lot of guys have missed stuff. A lot of guys have played very poorly. Pulisic played hero ball for ages and ages, and now he's finally getting it through his thick-ass skull that he doesn't need to do that.
Yeah, that was so cool, man. Seeing that interview where he actually addressed that and admitted it, and
it was healthy.
Yeah, and I thought that next game that he played in Qatar in the Club World Cup, like, it was one of the better games that we've seen him in a while. And I do think, even though Pulisic really got hammered for his performance in the last game for Chelsea, I thought that he came out bright. I thought that he was trying to get involved, and I thought that we saw him receiving the ball and getting it out of his feet really quick. Later on in the game, he was holding on to it, and he was getting kind of slaughtered in that midfield. But I'm optimistic. I'm hoping we're going to see the best of Pulisic soon.
It was an interesting position he played too. Like he kind of was like, wasn't a striker, but
he was a classic 10, man. He was almost like a Mesut Ozil type of 10. He was just pinging the ball all over the field.
just do what you want position, basically, which I thought was great.
And in that next game for Chelsea, they gave him more or less the same role. He was playing behind two strikers and was kind of given the opportunity to kind of move the ball around.
And again, I mean, he hasn't really been scoring or assisting or completely kicking ass like he had in other games way back that we can all remember. But I think he'll come out of this, and I think he'll be fine as long as he can stay healthy. That's the big issue there.
Mm-hmm.
But Brett brought up the interview with Gregg Berhalter, which I do want to get to. But before we do that, Lawless made a big to-do about basically saying, shut up about complaining about Scally not getting a phone call. He's a grown man. He's fine. But that's not really how things work. He defended Scally and Greg at the same time. Do we have that tweet, Brett? Anyhow,
I can find it if you guys want to talk for a bit.
Did you read that tweet, Sam?
I do. I don't remember it verbatim, but I do remember it. Yes.
Oh, okay. Since we've all seen it, I'm just going to bring it up. So I'm going to talk about it. So basically, somebody asked, "Hey, what about the comment that Scally made about how he hasn't been contacted by Berhalter since November?" Because a lot of people are bringing that up. Like, how's he not kept in contact? How's nobody contacted him about anything? You know, like, hey, good work this week. You did well, or keep it up, or not this window, but maybe the next window or something. But so somebody reached out to Lawless and said that, and Lawless basically said, paraphrasing, of course, that he's a big boy. He's doing just fine. He's not whining about anything. But I don't think anybody was saying that he was whining about anything.
He said participation trophies, right? I remember that.
Yeah. So
that triggered a lot of people, I think.
Well, the big point is that you only have you have so many jobs as a manager of the United States national team coach. You have X, Y, and Z things to do. One of them is to stay in touch with your players, whether they're brought in for the windows or not. You got to stay in touch with the ones that are up there. It's weird that somebody highly touted as Scally, who has 23 games with Gladbach, waning now that everybody's healthy, but his 23 games so far this season, and he got into one window, didn't play a lick of time, and then hasn't had a single phone call since. Not even from Brian McBride or somebody else from from the USSF. But nobody's reached out to him. And I understand that he is a professional player, and he wasn't whining about that. He was answering a question, which is what Lawless was saying. But I feel like somebody should probably be reaching out to these players.
I've been thinking about this a lot, man. This discussion, it's an interesting one from a lot of different angles. The first question I have for you guys is, I know that Scally is a player that people have a lot of emotions with. He's a guy that people feel very strongly about, and I know that Greg elicits a lot of emotions for people as well. If we consider other guys who are sort of in Scally's position in the national team, which is young up-and-comer looking to break in, and we think about like if you found out that Sam Vines hasn't been contacted by the national team in the last 2 months, would you be upset about that?
Yeah, I would be, because I think that's just something. If the guy's been a regular rotation player for you for a while, I think you have the obligation to at least say, hey, man, I'm just checking in. How are things going? We've watched all your games. Right now, we don't think, we're going to call you up. Hold on, Brett.
Yeah.
And
let me in, coach.
I think that's all that call has to be. It doesn't have to be complicated. And I think the same thing could have been to Scally, because I think Scally's looking and going, Brooks Lennon made that team? And I didn't.
As if on cue, Derek.
That's weird,
So, that was basically going to be my point, is that he's not in touch with Scally. If he wasn't in touch with Vines, that would shock me, because Vines is a viable option at left back. You could have your opinion one way or another, whether or not you think he's the best option at left back, or maybe we bring in another right back like he did with Brooks Lennon, and we just shuffle Dest over. But I mean, he's still a viable option for a number 2 at left back.
Yeah, because Sam, if you don't get a phone call, just a courtesy phone call, doesn't that mean you're way out of the fucking picture?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know how it works internally. I mean, one of the things that Greg actually does get credited for is his communication with the players and the
Typically, you're right.
yeah,
Yes.
the way that he's built that group, and that group seems to be pretty strong, and they seem to care about each other and that. But yeah, so this kind of goes in opposition to that. I mean, I do wonder, like suppose this was Jurgen Klinsmann, 6 years ago. Suppose this was Jurgen Klinsmann, and we found out that Jurgen Klinsmann hadn't contacted. Gosh, I'm trying to remember who was on
Landon Donovan.
Julian.
No, not Landon Donovan. It would be like Brad Evans or something like that.
Right.
Like Klinsmann hadn't contacted Brad Evans in 2 months. Like how would we feel about that?
Not very worried.
Well, I mean, we're talking about a span of World Cup qualifying windows that are literally, for the most part, back to back to back to back. When you may not necessarily be keeping in touch with a viable option at either right or left back, that seems to be a concern, in my opinion.
So here's go ahead, Sam. Sorry.
You keep saying viable option. I think part of this is like the thing that we don't want to talk about is that I don't think that Greg sees Scally as an option for this last window.
Well,
I think
that's why.
Well, did you guys?
Well, let's bring Brooks Lennon in, who hasn't been in any camps up until the December camp. I mean, it's nutty. In my opinion.
I think the Brooks Lennon thing was a whole different thing. He said in his press conference, "Whoa, can you guys hear the train?"
I can hear the train. Yes,
he
That's
said
awesome.
I'm pretty close to train tracks where I am right now. He said in his press conference for the January camp roster that they kept a lot of players in who were already in camp as potential options if there was like COVID issues, anything like that, because those guys were already quarantined and they were clean, so they were good to go for that. So I always thought that like guys like Roldan and maybe even Leggett, Gabriel Slolina, and what's the player we're talking about right now? I forgot his name.
Lennon.
Yeah, Lennon. Those were just guys that were just kind of extra and were never really meant to be a part of the group. And I don't think any of those guys played any minutes. Did maybe Roldan?
No, but wouldn't it have been good just to bring Scally and keep him integrated and in with the team? I mean, he's so familiar with some of these guys too. He knows all the younger players as well. He's
in my heart, yes. In my heart, yes. I think I would have loved to have seen Scally as a part of the group, though. I understand that bringing any of these guys, especially in that last window, whenever Omicron was just like kind of running rampant, and there was already that issue with Gianluca Busio, who tested positive right before that. That like if any of those guys had COVID, that would have been an issue. And bringing extra guys from Europe who are outside of that quarantine window, who you don't expect to play in the games, is a bit irresponsible. So I understand it from that perspective. Now, at the same time, I do agree with you guys that I would have loved to have seen Scally as part of the group. I'm just saying that I understand that there's other reasons why, if you don't plan on playing him for whatever reason, if you don't think that he's up for this window, if you think that it's going to be, who did it end up being? Destin Cannon, and that Robinson was going to play all 3 games. Like if that's what your plan is heading into the window, there is some validity to making that decision. So I get that. And heading into this final window, I'm not anticipating, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not anticipating many new players. I think it's going to be more or less the same roster that we saw in the last window. Add maybe Gio Reyna if he's healthy. Maybe Josh Sargent, maybe if he can kind of show himself to be more of an option there. I don't
less
know.
of a concern there would be instead of Zardes, you bring in somebody like Pifok, who actually has been scoring goals, and he just scored again this weekend.
I see that too, but I don't expect there to be.
I don't expect it. I agree.
I think that it's going to be more or less the same roster, and if that's what you're thinking, if you've already made those plans, then it sort of all makes sense, at least to me. And I still contend that those guys who were kind of on the edge of the roster, the guys like Pifok, the guys like Scally, Luca De La Torre, Gianluca Busio, Tanner Tessman, a lot of these guys are going to have their opportunity should we qualify, especially with Nations League coming up. That's going to be their opportunity to come into the group. It makes a lot of sense to kind of keep that same group throughout World Cup qualifying and not kind of throw anything into the mix whenever you absolutely need those points in the next window.
Okay.
So I understand the thought process, at least I should say.
I don't understand Zardes on this team, and I don't understand any thought process that makes it, viable. And the same thing goes for Leggett and Roldan for me. And it's not an anti-MLS thing. I have nothing against those guys. I have nothing against MLS. Hold on, not done. But we love ourselves some Walker Zimmerman on this show, and we love ourselves some Matt Turner on this show. Those guys are MLS guys, so it's not that. So you can't, point us. But I mean, Sam, you got to understand, Zardes really over PFOC for what imaginable reason possible? I don't understand it.
Yeah, I mean, the reason that Greg gave at least a few windows ago was that PFOC's not dynamic and that he doesn't play the ball with his feet, which is true. I mean, if you watch PFOC, he does do that. He's really good at getting into the box and putting away chances.
But you're comparing it to Zardes's feet.
Yeah,
which is lined with cement.
Yeah, I mean that's a big thing. I think another point here is if you guys listen to the interview that Scuff Podcast did with Eric Williamson, they actually put that out this morning, and it was very good.
I haven't yet. No,
it was very illuminating. Williamson was asked about why he wasn't a member of the Olympic qualifying team, and how he broke through in the Gold Cup. And the point that Williamson made over and over again was like how difficult and complex it is to learn Greg Berhalter's system, which is a conversation all on its own. Like, should a national team have such a complex system that players take forever to learn it? And that's a whole different separate discussion. But either way, this is what we have, right? This is what we have. It's a complex system, and it's not something that you can just kind of bring guys off the street and they pick up right away. So if experience within the system matters, then like that would make sense for Zardes. But I'm not really high on Zardes. If Zardes was, if it was PFOC over Zardes in the next window, I would be fine with that. I'm not going to argue with you on that one.
No, I mean, I'm not high on Zardes either. I'm high on other things, but I will say this. And let's read Chris Gary's super chat. If we had an injury and suspension issues at right back and Lennon was our one option, we'd be screwed. And Scally had just recovered from the Rona. No, I get it, Chris. You're right. He had just.
We had Yedlin and Cannon both in that camp. It would have been the left back. That would have been the issue.
Right. And that would have been where the cover would have been, because even Greg talked about, Yedlin's played there back in 2000.
He's like
Yedlin, Cannon, Dest,
everybody's played
Acosta.
There. Everybody besides Lennon, basically, and Acosta, yeah. But everybody besides Lennon has played left back, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess, he did plan on playing Robinson. I just, that was a weird. I
hate that, man. Me. I remember back in I forget. I'm not good at numbers, but the World Cup, where Klinsmann only brought Josie Altidore as the striker, and Altidore got injured in the first game. So Dempsey had to play striker for the rest of the World Cup, and boy, that was frustrating. And we do see Greg do stuff like that. He picks these rosters where you don't have a lot of cover at positions, and that's frustrating. He galaxy brains these things, and yeah, I don't love it, but it's what we got right now.
I think every coach that becomes a manager of the United States men's national team should have to take an IQ test prior. That's just something I would require.
Are you a stupid dummy or not?
Well, and here's the even though Scally had just gotten the Rona, here's what Greg should have done. Hey, yeah, dude, I just heard you got the Rona, so we're just not going to call you up this time. Okay? Yeah. Hey, you keep up the good efforts there.
Crazy talking now, right?
Yeah. So
it's weird, man. I don't know. So you guys think that, let's say the 40-man depth chart that is the U.S. men's national team, the 40 people that could potentially make any roster. We feel like Greg should be in regular contact with all these people.
So, yeah, that's a great question. So in the old days, with Bruce, I'm just going to use Bruce as an example because I know he would basically call the top 40 guys. That's it. And then if you were out of the top 40, he would let you know you were out of the top 40, but he would call the ties that were in the top 40 and just say, here's what I'm thinking. Here's what's going on. You keep up this, you keep up that. Here's where you kind of stand on the pyramid. He was like really blunt about it with players. We're just not, that's what I want to see. And Bruce wasn't even good. He would have a lot of his staff make those calls too. It wasn't just him. He didn't have time to make 40 calls. I mean, he'd make like 30, and then the other guys would handle the kind of outliers.
And to be fair, it's a lot easier to contact these guys. It's a lot easier to keep track with them.
Oh, it is.
And everybody's so much younger than in those Bruce Arena days where the team was like 26, 28-year-old players.
How do you text on this thing,
I mean, back when Bruce was the manager the first time, he had to use like one of those
a rotary phone,
a rotary phone to
write them letters.
So,
well, I mean, to that point though, how hard would it be to send a text?
Yeah,
I mean, he's got the number.
Work. That would work.
Hey, Scally, cool man, you're doing good. Not this window. Next time, bro.
Yeah, get better from the Rona.
I understand Twitter has 244 characters, but come on, texts don't.
Yeah,
it's a fair point. It's just it's one of these issues that I don't know exactly how I feel about it, and I'm worried that some of my feelings about the player involved and the coach involved are coloring this. I wonder if it was, say, like Tata Martino didn't contact Diego Lainez for 2 months, would I think that was an issue?
I would.
I'd be like,
there's talk that he's not in contact with a couple of Mexican players,
right? And he's not really taking some of the best young talent that's developing right now,
or some of the best old talent, man.
Well,
I mean, there's guys like Chicharito, and I can never remember the player's name who plays for LAFC. What's his name?
Vela.
Carlos Vela. Yeah, he's been kind of he's been on an island away from the Mexican national team for like the last 6 years, and there was a time there where he was definitely one of the best Mexican players that could have been called in.
To me,
I don't know if it's exactly the case now, but I think if you consider the guys that they've been calling in, like Antuna and Pizarro, I mean, he's definitely better than those guys.
Vela is a hell of a talent.
Yeah.
I mean, he still is, even at his age.
And
it's just crazy to me that, a guy who just managed in MLS and got to saw a whole lot of Carlos Vela is not calling him up. To me, that's a little weird. But I'm sure he's got his reasons.
It's possible that Tata can't. He's in the same camp with Berhalter, and that he can't manage a squad of 30 players, but he can do 28 because 30 is too many.
Well, he had an issue a while back. He had an issue, and he got suspended from the national team. And then after they wanted to bring him back in, he was upset with the national team, and it was kind of like just a bickering thing. Sort of. I don't know much about the Hakeem Ziyech situation right now, but I don't know if you guys saw, but he retired from international soccer recently. He said he wasn't going to play for Morocco anymore, and I got to assume that he's one of the best players on the Moroccan national team. So,
he is. I
mean, periodically these things happen where these great stars, for one reason or another, just don't want to play for their national team or not welcome on their national team. It happens.
I think it's like almost a financial thing. I'll have to look into it deeper, but I feel like a lot of the Moroccan national team, kind of like the Jamaican team, are dealing with their own federation and having bad.
Karim Benzema with the French national team. I mean, when France won the World Cup, Benzema was not on the squad, and Benzema has been one of the best strikers of his generation, and he was probably at the peak of his powers whenever France went to the World Cup. But he's been on the outs with that squad. I mean, France has the quality in order to be able to tell somebody like Benzema to hit the bricks and still be able to compete for a World Cup. But still, I mean, it happens all over the world where some player is on the outs for one reason or another.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to leave this particular part of the conversation. I mean, the basic thing is just do your best to be as communicative as you can with your like top 40 players. That's basically, I think, the bottom line. Ev Osama super chat. Why do you guys think of a 4-4-2 diamond? What do you guys think of a 4-4-2 diamond and Reyna, McKennie, Musa, Adams all in the motherfucker midfield with maybe Pulisic and Weah up top? I love it, but I don't think it's going to happen.
It's been brought up before. We push the 4-4-2, whether it's the empty bucket or just a straight diamond middle, doesn't really matter. But we bring the 4-4-2 all the time, and we talk about having a two striker tandem that consists of no actual standard nines, if you will, like the Pepis or whatever. And Pepe could be a 4-4-2, but it doesn't matter. Beside the point. Regardless, we brought this up many times. I think it'd be great.
Yeah. Let's get all the best players on the field.
Fuck yeah.
I've never been a fan of the 4-4-2 diamond. I'll be honest with you guys. I'm not.
Removing.
Unfriended.
All right. Well, that was Sam. He was on the show for a few moments there.
Go
ahead, Sam. Why not?
I don't exactly remember why. I remember there was good tactical reasons why. I think part of it is that it tends to be a very narrow formation. And I think part of it for the U.S. men's national team specifically is that we have these fullbacks who are getting forward so much. Like somebody's got to play defense at some point ultimately. So if you got the fullbacks going forward and you've got like your front two strikers and then you got three midfielders who are kind of getting into the mix, then you got three guys staying back, which is difficult. It's never been my favorite formation. I've always preferred the 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1 type thing.
Well, that tends to even be thinner. When you say it's not wide, the only thing I would say, if you're playing an actual, not a diamond 4-4-2, but even say a traditional 4-4-2, the great thing about that is everyone's assignment is really clear. You know exactly what space and what part of the field you're supposed to cover. And it covers the middle, it covers the wide, and then you got two strikers up top. But I mean,
you do have a hole in your a hole in your midfield. Like it's designed with a hole in the midfield. And if you have a player who can routinely slip into that hole in the midfield and play penetrating passes around, you can get picked apart really easily. It tends to be like an all or nothing type formation. Like it's kind of come back into style with like the high pressing, because with like the high pressing, you kind of lose your defensive formation anyway, just because guys are kind of moving all over the field trying to fill in. But if someone is able to get that ball in that sweet spot in the hole of your diamond and play a nice pass somewhere, then you're on the back foot, and it could be a nightmare, especially considering most of the teams you're playing are playing in a 4-3-3, and they do have that extra player in that exact position. So it makes for a difficult thing to manage. But
you're right.
It depends on how they get stretched out. Right. I mean, as far as the diamond's concerned, I mean, you're not necessarily reliant on your wingbacks to push forward.
So the thing is, in modern soccer, so many fullbacks get forward that the formation is falling out of favor. We don't have those guys like Steve Cherundolo anymore, who are like more or less content with kind of sitting back and being defenders,
kind of pushing up and not really pushing up.
Now it's the modern fullback is getting upfield so much that it makes the
that used to be the more. They used to be Cannon. Those players, they were great 1v1 defenders, but they never really got up into the attack. Now they kind of had to adapt since then. But
Cherundolo used to get up into. So what would happen in the old 4-4-2 is if Cherundolo advanced far up on the right, the left back would stay stationary with the two center backs as coverage. And then if Cherundolo lost the ball and he got back and then the ball was transitioned to the other side of the field, then the left back would go up and Cherundolo would sit back with the other two center backs. So, I mean, there's that kind of rotation. Again, I guess we don't want to get in the weeds again, but the point is you can play the 4-4-2 in a lot of different ways. So we don't want to.
You can, and it's kind of coming back into favor. Like I've seen it in Germany a few times.
I have too.
Other teams, So
it is.
Like
the game always evolves.
Formations are like fashion; they always come back.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, not the 2-1-2-5. That's not coming back anytime soon.
2-1-2-5.
The WM.
The WM. That's not coming back. There's no way you could play that now. You might be able to try it, but I'm not going to recommend. I mean, when I was in high school, we played a 3-1-3-3. I mean, that's fucking freaky. Who plays that? No one. Absolutely nobody.
Look at diamond in the back.
Yeah. Do you, let's see, get Chris Gary 199. Do you ever get the sense the players dislike Greg?
Yes. I guess not. Maybe not necessarily personally. They may disagree, but like dislike him. Like, I can't stand that Berhalter. I don't know.
I mean,
I don't get the sense that many people love Greg as a person. I think most of the relationships that he has are like almost like a transactional business relationship. And I think that's what the players have. And I think that there is respect there. And I've had conversations with people behind the scenes about this. But I think in my interview with Jimmy Conrad, I asked Jimmy specifically about his being a teammate with Greg, and about if he agreed with the idea that Greg doesn't necessarily care about being liked by the fan base, and he like concurred with that. I think that's kind of like Greg's personality, where he's kind of like an all business dude, and he's not like a guy that people are gonna like, be a charismatic guy that people that's going to be beloved, that's going to be carried off the field or anything like that. That's kind of my sense.
I think they're trying to like do that, like with his shoes and his mug collection, coffee mug collection. They're trying to make him relatable. That doesn't make him relatable to me. I don't have a fucking coffee cup collection. I could give a shit about coffee cups. So if you're going to be relatable, try something else. I mean, if you're going to try to be relatable, and maybe
I don't think that he cares about trying to be relatable.
No, you're right.
I don't think that he cares.
He
I think it's more of a USSF thing.
I think it's more of a turd thing. I think the turd would like him to be more relatable. And
he's in the chat, Derek. Quit calling him that.
Are you guys suggesting that the guy whom you are referring to as Michael the Cameron turd is responsible for the tweet?
I thought he was. It sounded a lot like Michael Cameron, actually. Maybe. When I read the tweet, I thought it was him. I seriously, the first thing I thought, but that sounds like Michael Cameron.
This is all speculation from me.
Yeah.
But I have been the guy running the corporate Twitter account before, not US Soccer.
Oh, I was
for
saying,
other brands.
We just got that on this show. Shit.
Yeah. I've been the dude that runs the account for other dudes. Like I've been the social media guy for other brands. And a lot of times people higher up the ladder have access to that account as well. And sometimes they decide to jump in and say something. And that's what that tweet felt like for me. So it could have been from the absolute top of US Soccer. That's what that felt like. I didn't think that somebody lower down would make that tweet.
But I think they were idiots for deleting it later.
Yeah, that was
keep it up.
You never delete tweets. Own it and run with it. Joke about it. That's the way to go about it. But
yeah, don't say
when
sorry.
You start deleting stuff, it's dumb. Don't do that. Don't do that.
I mean, you could say, "Hey, listen, I'm sorry. That wasn't the best take we had, but it was the one we had at the time, and we're open for your."
Let me clarify, because I do see some people asking. Yeah, I worked for some radio stations. I worked for like big corporate radio stations where I wasn't on air or anything like that, but I did run the Twitter accounts. So that's what I did.
You didn't work at Purdue Pharma.
No.
I'm more likely to have worked for Purdue Pharma, actually. I won't get into the reasons why. But no, I haven't worked for Purdue Pharma either. Anyhow, I'm not getting to Pharma. Fuck, that's a fucking shithole discussion right there. I don't want to even get into it.
That's not what our show's about.
So the thing
I want to say this. Speaking of the Jimmy Conrad interview, I want to thank you guys for doing like your breakdowns of the Alexi Lawless interview and the Jimmy Conrad interview. That's so cool to watch, man.
It's only
I appreciate you guys doing that.
It's only because you're a great interviewer.
Yeah, and you do a great job with it.
It's like I watched it and I'm like, God, I want to talk about this.
Well, and I don't know if you noticed when watching the shows, our takes are always about what Lawless or whatever Jimmy had mentioned, not necessarily what you mentioned, because you ran a solid interview on both occasions. So
yeah, I appreciate that, man. I mean, that's something. I take them very seriously, and I prepare a lot for them. So I try to get through a lot during those interviews. I know there's times where people want me to push certain things before, but I really feel like I have a responsibility whenever I have these guys to represent a lot of questions that the fan base has for these guys. So I do kind of move on to certain subjects so that I make sure that I get it all in. I thought that happens at times, but 100%. Yeah,
dude, I knew what the first interview with Meg that you did that I watched. I'm like, damn, this guy, he digs in a little. I like this. So, whatever people want to say about you being too nice or whatever. It's not really true. If you look into the questions
I asked
are
Jimmy
deep.
Conrad some tough questions, man.
Yes.
Whenever we got done with that interview,
he did some nice tap dancing around some of those things. So we love Jimmy. We love Jimmy.
Yeah, we do. I mean, he's been on our show. But we'll bust his balls for that next time he's on our show.
Absolutely.
I think there's a way that you can do it that's like respectful, that people will be open to answering those questions. And likewise, there's a way to ask those questions that's disrespectful, that people will clam up and won't give you anything. So I try to go on that side where people are going to be more willing to answer those questions and go deeper. And I think, like, specifically with Jimmy, and Alexi was the same way. I mean, they went a lot longer than I was expecting to. Whenever we were done with the conversation, they were like really appreciative of it, and wanted to do more. And those two guys, everybody that's been like one of the famous people that I've interviewed so far has been so gracious and so above and beyond. And after the interview was like willing to like answer questions, or like some of them gave me their personal phone numbers and their personal email addresses. Some of them set up meetings for me with other people within the industry. I mean, like, going above and beyond to be gracious. And so I can't thank those guys enough for.
I've got to ask, how many bathroom stalls did you write their numbers in?
No,
for a good time.
Here's the funny thing. Like, I noticed, like, at the very beginning of the Lawless interview, you looked a little nervous.
Yeah.
I think you were, and I would have been too. Like,
yeah,
I remember interviewing John O'Brien John O'Brien was like, I love John O'Brien, and he's on our show. Or Bobby McMahon, who'd been my mentor as a soccer writer for like 8 years, and I had him on the show. I was nervous as fuck. Like, it was weird, but you know, those guys, they're such good people. They make you.
Somebody's echoing again, by the way.
It's probably mine.
It's probably me. I'll turn down a little bit. Yeah, man. And they're passionate soccer people, and they want to have these conversations about soccer. And if I feel like if you meet them where they are and you're respectful and you do your diligence and you do your research and you put the work in necessary, that I think that they tend to have their guard up at first. I think Jimmy certainly had his guard up, and he was certainly kind of feeling me out at the beginning. I told you guys I got the strong impression that he didn't know anything about me whenever we were doing the interview. I think if you go back and watch, like, he never actually says my name because I don't think that he knew what it was. So I think that he was guarded.
It's on the fucking screen.
No, it's not. It's not. When we do the interviews, I don't have the names on the screen. I don't have that on because I add the names after in post. So they're not actually on. So there has been times where I'm interviewing people and they don't actually know my name. But Lawless was starstruck by Sam. I don't think so. But it's been a super great experience, and I'm really excited to interview more people. And these guys like Jimmy Conrad. I mean, some of the guys that I'm kind of talking to about doing interviews with right now, like, these are guys who were playing the game whenever I like fell in love with the team, you know, like, these are kind of the sweet spot for me. So getting to talk to these people is kind of crazy, you know, it's crazy. It's super exciting that I'm get to be in this position, and I'm excited to be able to put in the work and hopefully deliver something to the fans out there that's like noteworthy, newsworthy, you know?
Yeah, no. And it takes ball. I can't tell people how many balls this takes. It takes a big ball sack. I remember who was the right back that we had on, Brett, from the U.S. men's national team. I just forgot his name. He played on the 2002 World Cup. Tony Sena.
Okay.
I remember him being one of our first guests, and I was like, I don't know, I was like 40 at the time. I was so nervous. I mean, it takes balls to have these people on, because you don't want to piss them off, but you know, you want to get as much out of them as you possibly can. So,
now, for me, I do video production for a living. I own a video production company, so I conduct interviews all the time. And I've interviewed, you know, CEOs, I've interviewed politicians, I've interviewed athletes, head coaches of football. It's like a bunch of prominent people, a bunch of very intimidating people. So I do have that experience. I have been doing it for a very long time. So, and another thing is like you're in your room and you're just seeing the person on the screen across from you. It's a lot scarier if you're like actually in person with them.
Oh yeah.
So there is that. But still, you do kind of have to like get over that like stage fright of like who you're looking at and kind of forget that and kind of just dive into your notes and your questions, you know?
Yeah, I remember when the Brickyard Battalion and we celebrated the announcement of the team, and I had to hang out and talk with Mike Pence, who was the governor at the time of Indiana, for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, his eyes like stared like through you. I mean, you felt so like, oh, geez, this guy's intense, man.
Oh,
this
yeah.
guy's really.
I've been in those situations before, for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, the other thing,
dangerously taking us down a wrong path there, Derek.
I'm not. That's nothing to do with politics. Pence and a lot of the politicians on both sides supported the growth and build of the Brickyard Battalion. Oh my God!
Are we gonna do a music collab?
What?
I need some lyrics.
You got your book of rhymes right next to you, man. Pull it up. I know all the rappers do that, Derek.
I haven't written a rhyme for a while, so they're back in another notebook. I have to pull that out. No, I don't know if Sam knows this, but I've been doing a hip hop album recently. So
I did not know that.
Yeah, check it out. It's called Dare Jason, DERJASON. And actually, if you go to the Straight Red Card, we posted some of the videos. Well, I didn't. Somebody else did.
God damn it, T-Rec or
GZ. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's been posting up my rap songs. So let's get to the rest of this Bobby Warshaw interview.
Whole point of the conversation here, huh?
So
we're only 51 minutes into the show, guys.
I know we don't have much time. We got like 9 minutes, right? We wanted an hour. We're close to close to the hour here. But in the interview, it was weird that Berhalter picked out Matt Turner and McKinney to blame for the kick era. I thought that was kind of weird.
I thought that Turner was okay to blame. Because, I mean, you had the massive amount of wind. I mean, you got to imagine as a professional goalkeeper, you got to realize that. Don't boot the ball way up in the air. But I thought McKinney's outing was a bit strange.
That was a bit weird.
I mean, I don't want to. I don't really remember what he said, but I didn't get the feeling that he was blaming McKinney so much as saying, with McKinney not in that position, Turner shouldn't make the kick. You know.
Yeah, he mentioned McKinney pushing out wide and not staying in the middle, and that opened up the space. Yeah.
So he meant like he should be in that position.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I mean, this is trivial. I mean, really.
I've always get the feeling that Greg is super, super intentional about the things that he says. And like I mean, you can count on one hand how many times he's actually criticized a player in the press. If he's doing it, I think he's doing it like to players that he thinks like he's safe in doing so in those positions, you know. But
I thought you were going to say that you can only count on one hand how many times he blamed himself for something.
he rarely does that either. I'm not sure if he's ever done that.
No. And you know that would be actually refreshing if he did. But he also said that. And this was weird. He expected El Salvador to play a low block and be compact and low. And I was thinking, why did you expect that? Because that's not what they did, number one. And number two, I mean, he should know enough about the coach of El Salvador to know that's not what they're going to do. That's not what El Salvador does. They don't play a low block and play counter ball. They play kind of an open game, not like
they play their style. Yeah.
It's a medium block at best. So I thought it was weird that he had like one game plan for that.
Well, I mean, I'm revealing some breaking news right here, but I actually just kind of recorded a video right before we went live on some of my beefs that I had with Berhalter. And you kind of just said everything right there in there's only one plan, because there's always one plan. We don't have other plans.
Mm-hmm.
We have our one thing that we do. And the frustrating thing is that one thing that we do man, I don't want to give away too much of the video because I'm kind of just saying like the whole thesis of the video. But anyway, yeah, we only have one plan. There's not a plan B, and it's a very frustrating thing with the national team and with Greg in particular.
Well, what gets me about that is that it took Berhalter 24 hours to realize that Canada was playing in a low block. I mean, anybody watching the game could realize that.
Yeah, I don't know why that took so long, and maybe he just made himself look bad. Maybe he did know how right away that they're going to do that. But what did you
guys think about that? About him when Bobby Warshaw asked him about his comments following the Canada game, where he said what I forget exactly what he said. It was a decisive victory. It was a great performance.
We dominated.
We dominated. That's what it was. We dominated. Sorry, I forgot.
Yeah.
A little bit too much. Well,
this stuff, I mean, it's understandable you forgot about it because we lost the match.
Yeah. So, what did you think about when Warshaw asked him about that? He talked about how he was basically talking to his team and trying to get his team ready for the next game and to draw positives from the performance.
Well, he did mention very specifically that Canada wasn't able to make more than 8 passes in a row any part of the game. And
El Salvador didn't do that at all, by the way. But
I don't think that it's in Canada's game plan to make 8 passes in a row. I don't think that's what they do.
Well, they scored off of like less than 4 passes in a row. So why does it fucking matter if you get 8?
It's a disturbing answer. When somebody says, well, here's my answer, it's a bunch of fucking stats. Listen, those aren't a bunch of numbers on the field. Those are actual human beings that are playing. So you've got to take all of that into consideration, and you've got to be a little bit more artistic. Like, listen, if I just wrote songs my whole life using mathematical, like let's say I took musical theory in college, which I certainly would never do because those people are the most unartistic people I've ever met in my life. But if you do take that, and if you have, Sam, I apologize. I didn't mean it.
No.
Our bad.
My bad if I just offended
I'll own
people.
half of Derek's fuck up. So
Now, not every artistic theory person's like that. Like, so Paul McCartney says,
I think there's a few in the comment section right now that are like...
So Paul
McCartney
could not read music when he started writing for the Beatles. And then later on, he became very adept at writing music, and he knew how to write music. And
all these dots and lines? I don't understand this shit.
So eventually Paul McCartney became a kind of mediocre songwriter. I don't know if that helped him or not, that he now knows how to read music, because he's old. That's an issue.
Paul McCartney's a mediocre songwriter?
He is now. He didn't used to be. I mean, right up through Band on the Run.
Is he 80?
Yeah, I think he is 80. So I don't blame him. It's like that interview on 60 Minutes.
He's like a fine wine.
It's like that interview with Bob Dylan.
Yeah, so you did Sgt. Pepper, but what have you done for me lately?
Yeah.
It's like that interview on 60 Minutes with Bob Dylan when they ask him, how come you don't do music anymore? And Bob Dylan said, I got nothing left to offer. I did it.
He did that song with Kanye and Rihanna a few years ago. That wasn't bad.
That's true, but he didn't have to be like the major maker of it, you know? He's like, here's a lick. Use that.
I did not expect to be like discussing the validity of the greatest songwriters ever lived.
You're coming on to our show. You never know exactly what's going to happen here.
So, Sam, as you probably know or don't know, I was in a band. You were in a band for a long time, but I'm a musical historian as well. So this gets like, I could go into this a deep
Paul
way.
McCartney fell off. I love it.
He did fall off.
Who are your favorite 80-year-old musicians?
There are none. They're all dead. Most of them die before they're 80.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Due to what they were doing in their 20s and 30s.
Yeah, indeed. So one last question for you, Sam. And this is sort of like the speed round, if you will. Favorite beer. Favorite beer. Go ahead.
While Derek's saying these things, guys, in the chat, write some other questions. We'll bring them up. But this is the last question Derek's got.
Well, it's the last question because we're almost in an hour, and that's what
we never last just an hour.
Well, I mean, if Sam wants to keep going, we could go on after that a little bit, but I don't think we should go that far past it. Right, Sam? You got shit to do.
I don't have that much going. I got to eat at some point, but
okay, me too. I had a taco today.
You're drinking. That should be sufficient, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, that fills your belly, I guess, with warmth. So your favorite beer, Sam? Do you have a favorite style of beer and a favorite beer?
I'll go with a Beta Purple Haze. I'll go with a local beer. How about that?
It's not bad.
What type is that?
I've had that before. It's good.
It's a raspberry based beer.
I thought it was going to be too fruity for me, but it wasn't that horrible.
It's not fruity.
It's pretty subtle.
Yeah,
it's very
subtle.
They don't overdo it on the flavor there. So I think Brett likes the, crappy bitter beers. I'm a Belgian beer guy.
I'm an IPA guy. guy.
I like Belgian beers. I do.
Belgian beers. How about have you had Pyrat yet?
I have not. No.
Oh, get it. It's Piraat. Get it at a specialty store because your balls will fall off.
I don't drink a lot of beer. I don't drink a lot, really. I don't.
Remove what we did this already, right? This whole thing. Yeah.
I know all the whiskeys up there kind of like
he's had them for a decade, guys. They've just
I really don't drink a lot.
Did somebody say stop bickering with Sam?
Yeah. No, here you
go. Oh, us. Yeah.
Yeah, Hoegaarden's a great one. I see somebody said that. Yeah.
Hoegaarden's good.
What's the Blue Moon is a great one, God,
I'm trying to think of the best one in the world.
I am banning you from the chat. Bye.
All right. Well, that was one question.
You're gone.
I have to say, Le Fin du Monde, which is Canadian, actually, and also a Belgian style ale, is maybe one of the best North American beers out there, along with Three Philosophers. If you haven't had Three Philosophers, look it up. It will blow your balls off.
Three Philosophers.
I'll say somebody in the comment section a while back asked me what the best Boudin around is, and I think I would go Best Stop.
Boudin? I would say Jenny Kush, but that's what I know of Buddha.
Yeah, we getting real Cajun now, boy. Yeah.
Is that me?
They asked for it earlier. And it's
there you go. If you're still around, if you're still in the chat, I'll go with Best Stop as the best Buddha. Don's is a great one too, but those are my top two.
Did you mean to say Three Floyds instead of Three Philosophers?
No, Three Philosophers. Three Philosophers. It's by Ommegang in New York. It's one of the best beers you'll ever have.
Troll here, hey, Three Philosophers, but oh my god,
it's great. No, it's great.
If I'm gonna drink, it's usually gonna be a whiskey. It's not gonna be a beer.
Fair point. Fair play.
So, I'll say that.
I don't keep many beers because I'll drink way too many of them, and I don't want to keep up with it.
Oh, here's a question for you, Sam. Is Dennis Leary a horrible comedian?
I've never been a fan, but he was a little bit before my time.
He stole some material.
What's that?
He stole some material.
Yeah, that's the big thing people always talk about with him. I mean, all I remember about Dennis Leary is his dramatic acting. I don't remember him being
he was great in the movie The Ref. Oh, that was phenomenal. If you've ever seen that.
A little bit before my time.
Saw that one. But no, I mean, I think the consensus is now he should never do comedy again. He's not funny anymore, but he is a good dramatic actor. I'll give him that.
Speaking of before my time, I have noticed a lot that so many of the fans out there are a lot younger than me. Yeah, man. I noticed that a lot. A lot of the people that comment are 20 years old ish. So whenever I talk about anything that happened with the national team, prior to maybe the last cycle, they have no idea what I'm talking about.
It's weird. Yeah, our audience, I guess, is a little older.
Yeah.
And this is why we're a little smaller too, though. So this is a good time to bring up that Sam's going to be bringing on a lot of TikTokers for too long.
I say that just because I saw the big tweet that went around the world this morning that kid Steven Jimenez debuted at 14 years old.
Yeah, I sent that to Derek.
He's a 2007 kid. Oh my God.
Yep.
I felt so old reading that.
Who did he debut for again?
FC Cincinnati. Cincinnati.
Okay.
Cincinnati.
Wow, that's ballsy from them.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's Cincinnati. Of course, they can put in a 14-year-old. What the fuck else are they going to do? Lose 6-0? Come on.
Sam, did you know that the manager of Magdeburg in Germany was named Christian Titz?
I only because I saw your video covering. I mean, you are. Whenever I need information on Christian Titz, I know where to go.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
We're knowledgeable about the tits.
Yeah,
Mr. Titz. Sorry,
Mr. Titz. Yeah,
it is my father's name. Oh,
yes.
sorry.
Sam, is there anything you want to announce or like just say before the show ends about like promoting something coming up?
I don't know.
What are you working on?
I've got some interviews that are kind of lined up in the works that I'm excited about. I just recorded a video prior to coming on that I'll probably put up and produce tomorrow about Greg Berhalter. The podcast is still up and running. I'm excited for the March window. I do have tickets to go to Orlando, so I'm excited to.
You gonna meet up with Tact?
Yeah. I'm gonna meet up with Filippo. I'm gonna meet up hopefully with go to the Scuff podcast, go to their little get together they have. So hopefully I'll be running into a lot of the U.S. soccer community. Hopefully meet some of these players that I've been interviewing. That would be great.
Hey.
I actually talked to Alexi Lawless in Austin for that World Cup qualifier. He was in like the American Outlaw section, and like after the game, I went over there and I got to say a few things to him. He had no idea who I was, so that was cool.
Was he nice to you?
Oh yeah, he's super nice. Yeah.
Okay. He wasn't nice to me when I ran into him in like 2011.
It was in a different context, I'm sure.
He was walking across the street, man.
Oh, well, he probably learned his lesson since then, too.
I'm excited to interact with a bunch of the content creators out there for October, and hopefully it's a good window for us. Hopefully we would have already gotten 3 points in Azteca against Mexico, so the Panama game is just gonna be that thing that clinches the World Cup for us, and I'll be in attendance for that, and it'll be very exciting. And
so on a scale of 5 to 0, then going into this last window, 5 being like
0.
your balls are well snuggled, and 0 being your shit in your drawers. How do you feel right now going into this last window?
I try not to think about it. I would say
nobody ever thinks about.
You're in denial.
I would say I've been at a hard 1 for since 2018.
Yeah.
And whenever Gio Reyna went off the field crying the other day, I slipped down to a 0. So I'm just like erring on the side of terrified. But I do. That being said, I think we match up really, really well against Mexico. I think that we have been very dominant at home. That we should get those points against Panama and even against Costa Rica. I mean, Costa Rica, we matched up with them very well in that home game. There's not a lot about them that really scares me. The thing, Costa Rica played us a lot like Canada played us, where they kind of sat back and waited for those attacks. But whenever they did make those counterattacks, they don't have the athletes that Canada has to really exploit us. I mean, you guys remember that moment against Costa Rica where Chris Richards and Miles Robinson kind of botched that back pass, and Brian Ruiz had the slowest breakaway that anyone's ever seen.
He had a walker. Got to give him breaks on that, man. Jeez.
Yeah.
He only had 3 tennis balls, too. That's rough.
You guys know as well as I do that what in the world is scrolling at the bottom of the screen? You guys know as well as I do that playing in Costa Rica is not an easy thing to do, and especially if we're playing in Costa Rica and they're fighting for their last gasp at a World Cup opportunity. It's very scary. So hopefully it doesn't come down to that. But I am as optimistic as I am terrified.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I want to be optimistic, and I try really hard. But after the last World Cup,
that's really difficult for you, Derek, because you're the pessimistic one of the group.
I am.
If you want to be pessimistic, you have every right to. I mean, in the next window, we go to Azteca, where I don't think – what's the most we've ever gotten in Azteca in World Cup qualifying? I think the most we've ever gotten is 1 point, and I think that happened like once, maybe twice. And then we've got this Panama team at home that already beat us in World Cup qualifying.
Well, I blame that all on Greg.
Fair enough, but they did already beat us, so it's not like they're scared of us coming in, and they've been exceeding their expectations throughout World Cup qualifying, and they've got a berth at the World Cup on the line. And then we got to go to Costa Rica, where we, just like Azteca, have never fared well. So there is a lot of reasons to be pessimistic. There's reasons to be optimistic. There's reasons to be pessimistic, and it depending on how I woke up that particular morning, I'm on that side of the fence.
Well, every team we're going to play has a reason to play. That's the one reason to be nervous.
That could benefit us in the end, though, because quite frankly, we do better against teams that are pushing for a result.
Yes, we do better.
Whenever they come to us, or they sit at home and they hope to get the point or the 3 points, that's different. But when they're needing to get that result, that's a big difference. I think
Panama is going to still play a low block. Mexico won't.
Panama's got to win.
Yeah, Panama's got to win. Mexico does not have to win, but they're playing at home. They're going to push us, and I think that's going to benefit us, and we've seen it.
Mexico doesn't have to win at home,
but Mexico doesn't know how to play for any other way than a win. That's all they do.
They don't need to win simply because of the points, and they've got an easier window than us.
I don't think that Mexico, even though they don't necessarily need to win, I don't think that emotionally they can afford not to win.
They're going to come out hoping to win. They're going to push us, and I think that's going to benefit us because in the past 3 games that we've beaten them, they came and pushed at us. Because they just expect to dominate most of the game, have more of the opportunities, and I think they're going to continue doing what they normally do against us. And I think it's going to play to our benefit.
Well,
yeah, it really will.
And they have El Salvador and Honduras, 2 teams that have nothing to play for.
Exactly.
Okay, so they'll win both of those probably, and then
we said that in the last cycle with Trinidad and Tobago. Man, they didn't have anything to play for, and.
Yeah, sometimes that's when.
Sorry, I shouldn't talk about that.
That was the point. Again, we're in one of those scenarios where it's like it has to be like the perfect storm. Like Costa Rica has to win. If we don't beat Panama at home, or if we don't get a result against Mexico, Costa Rica has to win all 3 games. It's one of those scenarios where we're sitting back going, well, geez, we're pretty fortunate here that we're going to be in a point where we should qualify. But then again, we were in that same situation last cycle, and we totally fucked it up. Well, not only did we fuck it up, but everybody else fucked it up.
It was that situation, man, where all these things needed to happen that weren't supposed to happen, but all of them ended up happening. And boy, that Trinidad and Tobago game, man, that was the most disgusting soccer game.
How many of those players were not actually signed to a professional team? They're like...
those goals, man, those goals
garbage.
One of those goals was a goal that Tim Howard has saved every single time it's come his way since he was 14 years old. And it was the one glitch in the matrix where he let that ball in. And then the other one was that freak own goal off of Omar Gonzalez that just dropped in magically the right spot. With it's not like Trinidad and Tobago was in our box, getting great opportunities. These were freak chances that corresponded with freak chances that were happening in other games.
Yep.
And then there was these moments where I forget, was it Dempsey who had an opportunity that hit the bar and
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So much everything that could possibly go wrong went wrong.
When Twellman was on ESPN and he said, "What are we going?" I was thinking, well, did you watch that game? Because that was some freaky ass shit, man. Yes, we should have won the game, but those were freaky goals. That one guy scored a goal from 40 yards out. Well, he couldn't hit the fucking broadside of a barn on a normal day, and he scored from 40 yards out. The other thing, as you mentioned, went off Omar's toe, and then somehow had this weird looping spin that just got over Howard's head. It was some weird shit. And then all the other weird shit that happened externally was absolutely insane. So
you watch 1,000 soccer games and you see weird shit happen every now and then. But in that particular game, it just all happened in that game.
Yep.
Yes. That game was transcendental.
And that's what scares me. That's what scares me is I know that in this game, like even if you have the best players, even if you have the best coach, even if you have all the stuff in your favor, freaky stuff can still happen, man.
Yep.
Even for the best teams in the world, freaky stuff happens. I mean, Manchester United just lost a cup game to like a lower division team, and they've got, I mean, so many millions of dollars in their roster. They've got an immaculate pitch. They've got the best of everything you can possibly have. They have. Well, and freaky shit still happens, and that scares me, man.
And as we found out with the United States national team, you can have these great players, but if you don't have the coach it, then...
Well, I don't want to go out on this making everybody anally pucker. I understand why people would. My anus is puckered as we head into March for sure.
But
and I don't want to get
too
graphic, but I mean, everybody has a right to be nervous going into this last window. Go ahead. Sorry,
I mean, consider us in our particular situation as content creators for this national team. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I've invested a lot into this national team, man. And if they fail in March, like, what is the future of the Yank Report at that point?
I mean, 4 years of yanking it. That's what it's going to
be. No, in fairness, though, I mean, and Jimmy brought this up in your interview. The negative videos bring up more content for us, so it could do very well for your show. Saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe we didn't qualify for."
Dude, that'll last for like 4 months, and then
then you have 2 years of inactivity. So
and then you're just going to be putting up shit like Breck Shea eaten by anaconda for
900
4 years.
Views. Oh,
who would do that?
All right, one last question. This is John Burns, $5. 1 point in Costa Rica sneaking the U.S. into the playoff against New Zealand. 1 point in Costa Rica sneaking the U.S. into the playoff against New Zealand. I'm not exactly sure what that means.
That would require Panama to get more points and exceed past us.
Okay.
And us literally doing the bare minimum just to keep Costa Rica out is what he's saying. Which, don't get me wrong, we're going into Azteca. Azteca has never been our friend. But then again, this is the cycle. If we're ever going to win in Azteca, this is going to be the cycle. But then, to be fair, in Costa Rica, we've never won in Costa Rica. But if there's ever going to be a cycle where we're going to win in Costa Rica, it's going to be this one where they're sitting on aged players.
I'll take win tie. How you with that, Sam?
Yeah, well, that's fine with me, man.
That's qualifying. Of course.
How am I with that?
5 points? Are you serious? Yeah, we're good with that. Fuck it.
I mean, there's a part of me that believes that, I mean, this could potentially be like a 9-point window, man, because I still think that the U.S. matches up very well with Mexico. And for all the reasons that you guys talked about earlier, I do think that Mexico has to come out against us and be aggressive because their fan base is out for blood at this point. They're not going to want a Mexico that sits back in the Azteca. And if you come out against a midfield that consists of, Yunus Musa and it won't be Tyler Adams probably, but Yunus Musa and Weston McKennie. If you got guys on the field like Tim Weah, Brennan Aronson, maybe Christian Pulisic, whoever it is, guys who are so fast and can exploit that against these older legs of Mexico, man. I mean, and Azteca is a big field, and it's going to be really nicely manicured, and it's going to play really well into all the things that we like to do. We have every opportunity to go in there and steal one. But boy, I'm nervous.
Like if Mexico wanted to beat us, all they'd have to sit 10 players behind the ball, and just let us go at them the entire game.
That's the move. Yeah,
that would be interesting if they tried to do that.
To be fair, whenever we played them,
crazy if they did that.
Whenever we played them in Cincinnati, they sat back a lot. I mean, they didn't sit back as much as Canada sat back, but they did concede possession to us and allowed us to play and tried to hit us on the counter. I mean, if you think of all the opportunities they had in that game, I mean, they were early in the game and they were on the counter. They weren't able to put them away, but that was their game plan going in. And maybe that's what their game plan will be in this one, but who knows? I don't think it will. I think they're going to come out at us. I think they want to get the Olays going.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. So hopefully we score first. That'll make it easier.
Boy, would it.
Yeah. So, but hey, Sam, I want to thank you for coming on and staying over the hour. that we usually are trying to aim for, but never accomplish. We fail constantly to do an hour. And I hope you continue doing your great show with your great interviews, some of my favorite interviews out there. And it's nice to have you on because we know we're going to have a good time. Like we have other guests on. We're like, is this going to be a good time? Not sure it's going to be a good time. And so that's why we don't have a lot of guests on. So I appreciate that. And again, let's stay connected and keep doing stuff together.
Big question. When are you going to get Berhalter on?
Oh man, that would be so great. Somebody in the comments section of my videos said that if you can get Alexi Lawless on, you can get Greg Berhalter on.
That's
which I was like, I don't know about that. But then I was thinking like, what would be the way to get him on? What is there an email address or something like that? I don't think that there's a chance in hell that as he's active
Bobby
coach of the national
Warshaw
team.
64@gmail.com.
No, listen, Jimmy has Greg's email if you want it. So you can have to ask him for it.
Yeah, I don't.
Can Jimmy get him on Que Golazo?
No, he said he wouldn't have him on the show because he needs the distance. So, but we don't want Greg on our show. I mean, we'd like to have him on, but we don't have any shot at it because we've been too shitty to him.
I would like to have him on. I think I would have a really productive conversation. I think it would be great content. But at the same time, I do know that I would get like crucified on Twitter because I didn't say something that everybody wanted me to say, which does kind of suck. You guys know that. If I had Greg on, people would rip me.
Yeah,
they probably would. You kind of got hit on the Jimmy Conrad show too.
I get ripped a lot, dude. After all these interviews, it's just people are upset that
we appreciate it, man. We appreciate it.
I don't know. I don't know what the expectation is as far as like expecting me to be like rude to these people and then expect them to be open and answer the questions honestly and then to have more people in the future. Like it just doesn't work like that.
No, you're right.
So if you came out and said fuck you, that'd be the end of it right there.
No, there's no, and not even, it's just not fuck you, but like let's say a serious disagreement broke out. I mean, that could be detrimental going forward too. I mean, we're not afraid of that because
we expected the softball questions.
Dude, we're old. We don't give a shit. But you've got a long career ahead of you, Sam. You do.
To be fair, in the interviews that I do, I don't often like push back. I don't think of it as like a debate whenever I have these people on. I want to gain their perspective. I want to learn how they feel about certain issues. I'm not having them on for like a point counterpoint. So that's sort of the perspective I have. I'll have them say what they have to say, and then the comment section can react to it after that. But as far as me, like there's been times where I've disagreed with things that certain guys said. I remember, especially in the Jimmy Conrad discussion, I disagreed with some of the stuff that he said. But like using 5 minutes of that interview time to like be like, well, Jimmy, here's what I feel about that subject. I feel like is a bit of a disservice whenever I could be using the time to ask about questions that people like want to hear the answers to,
Well, being that he didn't even know your name, that was probably a good idea at the time. Like,
all right, Steve, calm down.
We can pin and needle Jimmy a little more because we've known him for over a decade. So I guess we can do that to him. And that's fine. And he'll like laugh along or whatever. It's not easy though, if you don't know the person like that well, and you're having them on your show, and it's the first time you've had them on your show, and you're like, ooh, what can I say? How far do I want to test this guy? And you do. That is a balance you just have to have. And
you get occasion when you get angry. I probably get more Cajun as like the whiskey goes down a little bit more. It probably comes out a little bit more.
You won't understand me when I get angry.
And to your point, Derek, I do consider like I do want to have more of these type of guys on, and I do think that maybe there's not a lot of big wigs out there watching, but if they are going to watch, they would watch the videos with those guys. So I want to put that on tape. Like whenever I ask high profile people to be on the show, I do send them the Alexi Lawless interview, right? Like no disrespect to any other guests, but like I don't show them like smaller content creator
I
interviews.
feel
that I do,
offended.
you know, like,
I'm offended right now.
Oh, shut up, Brett.
But Derek, in fairness, he hasn't interviewed me yet, so that's why he hasn't sent it out. It just makes sense.
yeah, we got to figure out the right subject matter to get Brett in on. So
Yeah.
that's going to happen at some point.
We'll get Brett out of the closet soon. Oh, I didn't sound right. Okay. He's married.
Fabulous.
Let's have
He's
Brett
married.
on. We'll have him on ahead
Just
of the
for
next
show,
window.
Derek.
We'll do like we'll do a window prediction, roster discussion type of thing. We'll have him on for that.
That sounds good.
Derek, this is how rumors get started, man. Just want you to know.
Oh, you and Sparkle Duck. All right.
Bring back the Cajun accent. Go Tigers. Try to get Dempsey and Jermaine Jones. I'd love to get Dempsey, man. Dempsey would be great.
Mhm.
Well, Pete and Tact had Jermaine Jones on, and they were like, we were a little disappointed. We thought we were going to get more. We didn't get much.
I've seen a lot of Jermaine Jones interviews over the years, and I kind of know what he has to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's the basic idea. Jermaine Jones wants a job. He's not going to continue to talk about fucking people's puppies and girlfriends or whatever.
Although Clint Dempsey would be great.
Puppies.
No, he didn't go to Europe because of his puppy. That's what Jermaine Jones said.
Jordan Morris, yeah, that whole thing.
Yes, exactly. It's the Jordan Morris incident. And after that, he whoa, shit, I probably shouldn't have said that because now CBS doesn't want me on. And but he's moved on since then. He has a job. He's doing all right. So
there's a lot of interesting people in the U.S. soccer world that I'd like to talk to. I mean, a lot of people that I either grew up reading their content or watching them play soccer or watching them talk about soccer. So it's really exciting. I mean, but I do take it really seriously. I don't ask people to do interviews unless I have a topic that I think would be great for them to be on. I'll give you guys some inside information. I approached Hercules Gomez about doing an interview and he responded and he was excited about it, but I haven't scheduled it yet because I know that I need to do a lot of research in order to pull that off. And I just haven't really gotten into it. I kind of started it, but I want to be fully prepared for whenever I get into that discussion with Herc. So there is that element to it as well. So hopefully that Hercules, I'll give you guys that one. Hercules will be one that I have a discussion with in the future.
Yeah, we're kind of on the edge of that one too. We're working on it as well. And I like the fact that guys like Winalda and Hercules and Jimmy are like, okay, fuck it. Let's just do some.
Yeah. To Herc's credit, he sent me a DM back right away, and he was interested in scheduling. It's been on me. I'm the one that needs to follow through on that. But I do want to make sure that I do my due diligence ahead of time so that I'm able to present something that's worthy of the U.S. men's national team fan base.
Right. And although, I mean, the great thing about Herc is you give him an issue, he'll talk for 20 minutes. So it's question, 20 minutes, question, 20 minutes. You got a full show. You're done. It's going to be really easy. But again, I want to thank you for coming on the show again. If you haven't gone to Yank Report, we will provide a link to Sam's show. Go there, watch, especially, I mean, all of it, but watch the interviews. Those are my favorite ones that you do. And although, the breakdowns are good too. So, I mean, like I said, watch all of it. I'm just an interview. I love like being introduced to Meg Swanick to me. That was wow, I didn't know this person existed. And she is so awesome. And she's so tuned in to what's going on.
Yeah. It's so cool.
I was gonna say we're gonna be having her on when she comes back stateside.
Yeah.
It's so cool being able to scratch the itch of doing interviews because I've always loved interviewing people and I've always been a big fan of interview shows. I really enjoy it. So being able to interview people and do it. So being able to interview people and do it on a topic that I absolutely adore, which is U.S. soccer, and be able to interview people that I grew up watching and have had an impact on my life as a fan has been absolutely tremendous.
Yeah, it's awesome. Oh, by the way, the porn site is 11 Yanks. That's 11 Yanks. That's the porn site. All right. Thank you for all of you for hanging out tonight and providing us questions and comments. We appreciate that. Sam's going to be back. We'll be back together. There'll be some sort of rotation going on here. Anyhow, again, thank you for showing up. Make sure you subscribe, share it with grandmother. and we will see you next time. Cheers.